Jesus down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. I've got the love of Jesus down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart to stay. I've got the peace that passes understanding down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. I've got the peace that passes understanding down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart to stay. I've got the wonderful love of my blessed Redeemer way down in the depths of my heart. Where? Down in the depths of my heart. Where? Down in the depths of my heart. I've got the wonderful love of my blessed Redeemer way down in the depths of my heart. Where? Down in the depths of my heart.
Good evening. Welcome to Daily Bible Kids. We are finishing up Exodus today. We're doing chapters 39 and 40. Again, what we've been dealing with was, so the whole book of Exodus, Moses and his people were freed from Egypt, from Pharaoh, okay, and after all that happened in Egypt, God promised them, I'm going to lead you to the promised land that's flowing with milk and honey, but you're going to have to travel, but I want to be with you. I want to separate you different from others, okay? You're going to be my chosen people, but you're going to have to follow some certain rules in order to do this, okay? And along the way, we're going to have what's called a tabernacle, which is that big tent, and I'm going to give you instructions on everything to construct that's going to be on the inside. With those instructions, we've been given those, and then now we've been working with actually building everything. Right now on chapter 39, we're going to be talking about the clothing for the priests. Okay? So the craftsmen made beautiful sacred garments of blue, purple, and scarlet clothing for Aaron to wear while ministering in the holy place, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Now, making the ephod. Bezalel made an ephod of finely woven linen, embroidered it with gold, with blue, purple, and scarlet thread. He made gold thread by hammering it out of thin sheets of gold and cutting it into fine strands. With great skill and care, he worked into the fine linen with blue, purple, and scarlet thread. The ephod consisted of 2 pieces, front and back, joined at the shoulders with 2 shoulder pieces. The decorative sash was made of the same materials, finely woven linen embroidered with gold and with blue, purple, and scarlet thread, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. They mounted the 2 onyx stones in settings of gold filigree. The stones were engraved with the names of the tribes of Israel, just as the seal is engraved. He fastened these stones of the shoulder pieces of the ephod as a reminder that the priest represents the people of Israel. All this was done just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Now this is making of the chest piece. Okay, so this is going to be a squared chest piece. Remember whenever I showed you that video and I had all them stones? So Bez made this chest piece with great skill and care. He made it to match the ephod, using finely woven linen embroidered with gold and with blue, purple, and scarlet thread. He made the chest piece of a single piece of cloth, folded to form a pouch 9 inches square. They mounted 4 rows of gemstones on it. The first row contained a red carnelian, a pale green peridot, and an emerald. The second row contained a turquoise, a blue lapis lazuli, and a white moonstone. The third row contained an orange jacinth, an agate, and a purple amethyst. The fourth row contained a blue-green beryl, and an onyx, and a green jasper. All these stones were set in gold filigree. Each stone represented one of the 12 sons of Israel. Remember whenever Jacob had 12 sons, and we had Joseph and his brothers? You remember? Colin, trying to get an action. You don't remember Joseph that could tell the dreams, and the coat of many colors?
Technical word coat.
You had 12, okay. So each of these stones represented each of those brothers. The name of that tribe was also engraved on it, on these stones, like a seal. To attach the chest piece to the ephod, they made braided cords of pure gold thread. They also made 2 settings of gold filigree and 2 gold rings and attached them at the top corners of the chest piece. They tied the 2 gold cords to the rings on the chest piece. They tied the other ends of the cords of the gold settings on the shoulder pieces of the ephod. That's, remember whenever he showed you them connecting it and fastening it to the corners on each side here. Then they made 2 more gold rings and 2 more gold rings and attached them to the inside edges of the chest piece next to the ephod, and they made 2 more gold rings and attached them to the front of the ephod below the shoulder pieces, just above the knot where the decorative sash was fastened to the ephod. They attached the bottom rings of the chest piece to the rings on the ephod with blue cords. In this way, the chest piece was held securely to the ephod above the decorative sash. All this was done just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Now, additional clothing for the priests. Now, Bez made the robe that is worn with the ephod with a single piece of blue woven cloth, with an opening for Aaron's head in the middle of it. The opening was reinforced with a woven collar so it would not tear. They made pomegranates of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn and attached them to the hem of the robe. They also made bells of pure gold and placed them between the pomegranates along the hems of the robe. Now these pomegranates, these are like if you remember, they're like a bunch of the thread that's together like in a ball, and it's twirled, they're tied together at the end. And then you have the pomegranate bell, at the bottom. Along with the hem of the robe, with the bells and the pomegranates altering all around the hem. This robe was to be worn whenever the priest ministered before the Lord, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. They made tunics for Aaron and his sons with fine linen cloth. The turban, which is the hat that he wears, it's like a big hat turban. And the special head coverings were made of fine linen, and the undergarments were also made of fine woven linen. The sashes were made of finely woven linen and embroidered with blue, purple, and scarlet thread, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Finally, they made the scarlet medallion, the badge of holiness, of pure gold. They engraved it like a seal with these words, "Holy to the Lord." They attached the medallion with a blue cord to Aaron's turban, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So this gold piece is attached to the front of this big, thick turban hat looking thing. Okay? Now, Moses inspects the work. And so, at last, the tabernacle was finished. The Israelites had done everything just as the Lord had commanded Moses. And they brought the entire tabernacle to Moses. So this is a list of everything that they had created. The sacred tent with all of its furnishings, which the clasps, frames, crossbars, posts, bases, the tent coverings of tanned ram skins of fine goat skin leather, inner curtain to shield the Ark of the Covenant and its carrying poles, the Ark's cover, the place of atonement, the table and all of its utensils, the bread of the presence, the pure gold lampstands with its symmetrical lamp cups, all of its accessories, and the olive oil for its lighting, the gold altar, the anointing oil and fragrant incense, the curtain for the entrance of the sacred tent, the bronze altar, the bronze grating and its carrying poles and utensils, the wash basin with its stand, the curtains for the walls of the courtyard, the posts and their bases, the curtain for the entrance of the courtyard, the ropes and the tent pegs, all the furnishings to be used in worship at the tabernacle, the beautifully stitched garments for the priest to wear while ministering in the holy place, the sacred garments for Aaron and the priests, and the garments for his sons to wear as they minister as priests. So the people of Israel followed all the Lord's instructions to Moses. Then Moses inspected all the work. When he found it had been done just as the Lord had commanded him, he blessed them. Now, chapter 40, the last chapter of Exodus. Now, the tabernacle is completed. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Set up the tabernacle on the first day of the new year." So the first day of the new year would be January 1st. Okay? Place the Ark of the Covenant inside and install the inner curtain to enclose the ark within the most holy place. Then bring in the table and arrange the utensils on it, and bring in the lampstand and set up the lamps. Place the gold incense altar in front of the Ark of the Covenant. Then hang the curtain at the entrance of the tabernacle. Place the altar of burnt offerings in front of the tabernacle's entrance. Set the wash basin between the tabernacle and the altar and fill it with water. Then set up the courtyard around the outside of the tent and hang the curtain for the courtyard entrance. Take the anointing oil and anoint the tabernacle and all of its furnishings to consecrate them and make them holy. Anoint the altar of burnt offerings and its utensils to consecrate them. Then the altar will become absolutely holy. Next, anoint the wash basins and its stands to consecrate them. Present Aaron and his sons at the entrance of the tabernacle and wash them with water. Dress Aaron with the sacred garments and anoint him, consecrating him to serve me as a priest. Then present his sons and dress them in their tunics. Anoint them as you did their father, so they may also serve me as priests. With their anointing, Aaron's descendants are set apart for the priesthood forever, from generation to generation. Moses proceeded to do everything just as the Lord had commanded him. So the tabernacle was set up on the first day of the first month of the second year. Moses erected the tabernacle by setting down its bases, inserting the frames, attaching the crossbars, and setting up the posts. Then he spread the coverings over the tabernacle's framework and put the protective layer just as the Lord had commanded him. He took the stone tablets inscribed with the terms of the covenant, the 10 Commandments, and placed them inside the ark. Then he attached the carrying poles to the ark, and he set the ark's cover, the place of atonement, on top of it. Remember, that's that big lid with the 2 angels on top where God's going to sit. Right, then he brought the ark of the covenant into the tabernacle and hung the inner curtain to shield it from view, just as the Lord had commanded him. Next, Moses placed the table in the tabernacle along the north side of the holy place, just outside the inner curtain. He arranged the bread of the presence on the table before the Lord, just as the Lord had commanded him. He set the lampstands in the tabernacle across from the table on the south side of the holy place. Then he lit the lamps in the Lord's presence, just as the Lord had commanded him. He also placed the gold incense altar in front of the tabernacle, in the holy place, in front of the inner curtain. On it he burned the fragrant incense, just as the Lord had commanded him. He hung the curtain at the entrance of the tabernacle, and he placed the altar of burnt offerings near the tabernacle entrance. On it he offered burnt offerings and grain offerings, just as the Lord had commanded him. Next, Moses placed the wash basin between the tabernacle and the altar. He filled it with water so the priests could wash themselves. Moses and Aaron's sons used water from it to wash their hands and feet. Whenever they approached the altar and entered the tabernacle, they washed themselves, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Then he hung the curtains forming the courtyard around the tabernacle and the altar, and he set up the curtains at the entrance of the courtyard So at last Moses finished the work. Now, the Lord's glory fills the tabernacle. Then, listen to this. The cloud covered the tabernacle, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Moses could no longer enter the tabernacle because because the cloud had settled down over it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Now, whenever the cloud lifted from the tabernacle, the people of Israel would set out on their journey following that cloud. But if the cloud did not rise, they remained where they were until it lifted. The cloud of the Lord hovered over the tabernacle during the day, and at night fire glowed inside the cloud, so the whole family of Israel could see it. This continued throughout all their journey. Any questions?
No.
So, tomorrow we are going to start Leviticus. So,
Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Dang.
Don't worry, after studying you'll get it. But anyway, so now Genesis
No,
we've been through, so that is beginning, okay, the creation, human history, Exodus, exiting Egypt, and setting out on their journey. Leviticus, is the story on their journey, and I believe this is where they start getting a lot of rules of what they can and can't do, and I think that's what that is. Because I know Numbers deals with it deals with a lot of counting of all the people, getting a census and whatnot. Because now we have all these people. Well, now we got to get a count of them. Okay,
Deuteronomy.
we're not going there yet.
And then King, and then I think King 1.
But
King
anyways.
2.
So, what'd you guys think? I mean, going from Moses and Pharaoh, okay, so they were slaves for 400 years. And now, with this baby who was found in this river, okay, by, I believe it was, Pharaoh's daughter?
Mhm.
Alright? Raised up, and Moses had all of his life.
Oh, sorry, it was his wife.
Huh?
It was his wife.
Well, anyways, it's still a baby in a basket floating down the river. To going up against Pharaoh to lead everybody that are slaves out of Egypt, crossing that huge sea that he was able to part because of God. And then now, we just got through building this big tabernacle for God to be able to dwell and be able to lead them through this journey to the promised land.
40 years.
Well, they haven't experienced that 40 years yet.
Not yet.
But
Experience 2.
they're about to. Anyways, alright, if there's no other questions about what we just read, we will start Leviticus tomorrow. You guys have a wonderful night, and God bless.